There's something almost paradoxical about matcha. On one hand, it has become incredibly popular. It appears everywhere now. Coffee shops, social media, wellness brands, beautiful kitchen counters, minimalist morning routines. Bright green matcha lattes have become almost symbolic of a certain aesthetic. And yet, beneath all the trendiness, matcha remains deeply quiet, slow, intentional, grounded. Its real appeal is not loud at all. In fact, I think the deeper you go into matcha, the less it feels like a trend, and the more it feels like a practice. Welcome back to TeaMinded. I'm glad you're here. Today we're talking about the quiet appeal of matcha. What makes it different? Why people are drawn to it? And why matcha often becomes about much more than simply drinking tea. For many people, matcha is their first introduction to Japanese tea culture. And visually, it's unforgettable. That vivid green color, the bamboo whisk, the ceramic bowl, the careful preparation. Even before tasting it, matcha feels intentional. And I think that matters. Because so much of modern life feels increasingly rushed and disposable. Matcha resists that. Not aggressively, not performatively, but quietly. Unlike most teas, matcha is not steeped and removed from water. The tea leaves themselves are stone ground into an extremely fine powder and whisked directly into water. You consume the entire leaf. That changes both the flavor and the experience. Matcha tends to feel fuller, richer, more immersive. And because the entire preparation happens in front of you, the process itself becomes part of the ritual. You measure carefully. You whisk slowly. You observe texture and color. You notice foam forming across the surface. Preparation becomes participation. Traditional matcha also carries deep historical and cultural roots. Its connection to Japanese tea ceremony, chanoyu, stretches back centuries. And while formal tea ceremony is incredibly refined and complex, one of its central ideas is surprisingly simple: attention. Attention to the guest. Attention to the season. Attention to movement. Attention to atmosphere. The ceremony elevates ordinary actions through care. And I think even modern matcha preparation still carries traces of that philosophy. One thing many people notice when preparing matcha is that it naturally slows them down. Not because it takes a long time, in fact, it's relatively quick, but because it requires enough attention that multitasking becomes difficult. You cannot really rush matcha while remaining present to it. The whisking, the sound of the chasen against the bowl, the warmth rising from the tea. It gently interrupts distraction. And perhaps that's one reason matcha resonates so strongly right now. People are hungry for grounding experiences, physical experiences, sensory experiences, practices that reconnect them to the present moment. Matcha does this beautifully because it engages so many senses at once: sight, texture, sound, aroma, taste. Even the bowl itself matters. A handmade tea bowl carries warmth and imperfection in a way mass-produced objects often do not. And that tactile quality changes the experience. Of course, matcha itself can vary tremendously in quality. Many people first encounter matcha through sweetened drinks or lower-grade powders. But high-quality ceremonial matcha is very different. Smoother, sweeter, less bitter, more complex. Good matcha often carries umami, freshness, creaminess, and subtle vegetal sweetness. The tea plants used for matcha are shaded before harvest, increasing amino acids like L-theanine and deepening both sweetness and color. After harvesting, the leaves are carefully processed, destemmed, and stone ground into powder. There's enormous craftsmanship behind even a small bowl of matcha. But I think the deepest appeal of matcha isn't really flavor alone. It's atmosphere. Preparing matcha changes the feeling of a room. The pace shifts. Attention sharpens. Silence becomes more noticeable. Even a simple morning matcha ritual can create a sense of grounding before the noise of the day begins. One thing I appreciate about matcha is that it embodies a different relationship with productivity. Yes, matcha contains caffeine. But unlike the frantic energy often associated with coffee culture, matcha tends to feel calmer and steadier for many people. Partly because of L-theanine, partly because of the slower ritual surrounding it. The energy feels more focused than rushed, more attentive than reactive. And perhaps that reflects something larger. Tea culture, especially matcha, often reminds us that slowing down is not the same as doing less. Sometimes, slowing down allows us to experience things more fully. A bowl of matcha prepared carefully may only take a few minutes, but those minutes feel different, more inhabited, more intentional. If you're new to matcha, don't feel pressured to approach it perfectly. You do not need to master formal tea ceremony. You simply need curiosity and a willingness to pay attention. Start with good water, a decent quality matcha, and a few uninterrupted moments. That alone can become meaningful surprisingly quickly. As TeaMinded continues, we'll keep exploring Japanese tea culture, loose-leaf tea, tea rituals, tea craftsmanship, and the ways tea shapes thoughtful living. But today, I hope this episode encourages you to experience matcha not simply as a trend, but as an invitation to slow down, to notice more, and to create small moments of attention in the middle of a distracted world. Thank you for listening to TeaMinded. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast on Spotify and share it with someone interested in matcha, Japanese tea, mindfulness, or slow living. And until next time, put the kettle on, slow down a little, and stay tea-minded.